Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Concho Sports Show. I'm Shay Harris, coming to you from Concho Sports Network World Headquarters in San Angelo, Texas, aka the land of sand and jello. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Vince Salazar. How you doing, buddy?
I was doing good, man. Yeah, that's probably the first time I ever heard, San Angelo mentioned as the place of sand and jelly. But that's a pretty good way to go. It's something like something that they can sell over at Eggemeyer. I'm sure they get a kick out of that.
And before we get started real quick, I just want to thank our sponsor, Wingstop on Knickerbocker Road in San Angelo. They are a locally owned franchise, so give them some support, and you can order pickup or delivery by calling 325-227-6777, or you can order from their app or wingstop.com. So support them. We'd appreciate that. And also want to invite you to follow us on social media if you enjoy what we do at Concho Sports. We would really appreciate that if you like what we do, and it's the best way to keep up with everything we do, all of our content as far as videos and live stuff like this. And we actually are. If you follow us on Facebook, we're way ahead. We have a lot more followers there than on anything else. So if you do follow us on Facebook, we'd really appreciate it. If you do use Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, to go ahead and follow us there too, we'd appreciate that. All right, and now it is time to go ahead and lead things off with Vince. What do you have for us today?
All right, man. Yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of a quiet week so far, but we got some good news in the sports world. Of course, we just got done with the NFL draft. Saw some really big pickups there for the Dallas Cowboys, bringing in some Oklahoma Sooners from the Big 12 Conference and some other really good power players, so they should be fun to watch. The biggest sport we heard probably going to be making its return here pretty soon in the month of May was NASCAR. They announced that they were going to kind of try to go forward without an actual crowd there. So it's going to be interesting to finally see them get underway. The only sport we really have had since then was professional wrestling, who's done a similar style. So we'll see how that goes. And, hopefully that's just a positive sign for us to finally maybe see things get going again. Hopefully, we'll see baseball kicking off. We have no idea how the NBA is going to come back if they do. And then, of course, we get ever closer to fall for football. So, hopefully things will keep getting better. But, just only time will tell.
Yeah, so as far as the draft goes, you mentioned the Cowboys. I'm really excited about CeeDee Lamb, man. That guy's gonna be good. Excited about that. Also, There is some news, actually quite a bit of news in this last week from San Angelo Independent School District. So first of all, about a week ago now, they replaced their Lady Cats volleyball coach, who's replacing legendary coach Connie Bozarth, who announced her retirement recently, with Julie Williams, who comes from Burleson Centennial and had some success there. So it should be interesting to see what she brings to the table in San Angelo. Also, just yesterday, I believe, or a couple of days ago, Coach Dustin Fott, the basketball coach for the boys, got hired by Midland High. So he's going to be in the same district coaching against the Bobcats now. He was here for, I believe, 4 years. Didn't have a ton of success, and they were in some tough districts because they were in different districts, than they usually are, also against the clean schools, and then of course the DFW district, which had some strong teams in basketball. So that's going to be interesting with him there, and see who they bring in next. Also, Brent McCauley, the athletic director at San Angelo ISD, announced his retirement after 37 years coaching and teaching and being an athletic director. And I've gotten to know him pretty well the last couple of years, and he's definitely going to miss. He did a great job over the last 5 years. Everybody loved him. They have a small office there for the athletic office, just 4 people, him, the assistant athletic director, Mark Baker, and the 2 athletic secretaries, Julie and Jessica, and that's a tight group, and they've always been really accommodating and friendly to everybody, and they all do a great job. So it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in now, but I do want to congratulate Coach McCauley on his retirement, and I hope you enjoy your lake life in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done a fantastic job with the Cats. They've been real fun to watch in pretty much every sport. going forward. You mentioned, they had a lot of challenges going up against some of the DFW schools. I know Midway High School here in Waco was one that they were also going up against. And a few, I think in baseball and basketball as well, definitely a challenging opponent. But, the Cats have done phenomenal under him. It's going to be a lot of big changes. We'll have to find out how the Cats continue on here. But, they've been successful. I believe the community has rallied behind them time and time again. So, Cats will be back. So we just got to kind of see how the future has in store for them a little bit.
Absolutely. All right, now it's time to bring on our guest. He is the Dave Campbell's Texas Football High School Football Insider Extraordinaire, Mr. Matt Stepp. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey guys, how's it going?
You're doing great.
Doing good.
So first I got to ask, man, how you been holding up with all of this pandemic stuff and social distancing?
All right, I don't complain too much. I mean, I'm pretty fortunate. My income hasn't been impacted at all. My day job, I can work from home. So, it's not the greatest situation, but I mean, I'm fortunate and blessed. So, I know there's a lot of people who are impacted a lot worse than me. So I'm just a little stir crazy and ready to get out of the house more than anything. So, but this all happened right at a time when I'm really busy and I don't get out of the house much anyway because it's magazine season and we're kind of knee deep. I was knee deep really in the magazine the past month or so. It started to slow down now. So hopefully this thing will end pretty quick so I can get to watch some sports and do some things because I'll get bored real fast.
Yeah, I hear you there. It's people going stir crazy with all this. And I know Vince, he's in Waco right now back home because he went there for spring break and never got to come back. So
there you got to return back to San Angelo, so I've been stuck here the entire time.
Also, real quick, I wanted to congratulate you on thinking about it on being named the Putt Pal Sports Writer of the Year by the Texas High School Coaches Association. I think they just announced that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a huge honor. I'm really humbled to get that award and very fortunate. You see the writers who've gotten that award in the past, and it's some big names, and to see my goofy self on there listed among those guys is pretty cool. I'll have to wear a suit and actually wear a suit and tie. I don't do that very often, except at my day job occasionally. So I'll have to wear a suit and tie, but it's a big honor, and I'm excited for it. And it's back-to-back years for Dave Campbell. Since Tepper won it last year, and I won it this year. So next year we're looking to make it a three-peat with Ishmael Johnson. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. That was well-deserved by both of you guys. And you mentioned wearing a suit and tie. I'm kind of the same way. I don't really dress up much, but that kind of reminded me, is everybody wearing pants right now?
Got sweatpants.
Shorts. Got shorts on.
Okay, so I was going to see if y'all saw that a couple of days ago, I think, that ABC newscaster reporter, I think he was doing a remote from home and he didn't have his pants on, and his camera was out wide, so you could see his legs where there wasn't wearing pants.
They were shorts that are a little shorter than what I would wear too, so you couldn't see much short there at all.
That is true. And I'm wearing shorts that don't even match the shirt. I'm wearing basketball shorts. So.
But it's like 100 degrees out there in San Angelo, isn't it? It's like 100 degrees over there in San Angelo, though, isn't it?
Oh, yesterday it was. It's only in the 80s today, I think. But, man, it ended up getting up to 106 yesterday here. It was crazy.
That's the one thing I don't miss. So I'm kind of happy I don't, not have to deal with that heat.
Yeah, that was just a random. I mean, it was supposed to get to about 100, I think, and it got even hotter than it was expected to be. So you mentioned you'd been working on the magazine a lot lately. Talk about that process and like what part you play working on the magazine, and also just how much is left to get it together. Because I know if you're an insider with DCTF, you get it mailed out in sometime maybe late June, something like that. So I'm sure it's pretty close.
Well, you'll get it earlier than that. I bet you'll get it if you're an insider, which if you haven't signed up, you should sign up and become an insider, because we'll mail you your magazine before it hits newsstands. You probably get it around mid-June, I'd say. You'll get it a week or so. It usually hits newsstands after June 20th. So yeah, I bet you'll get it about a week early if you're an insider. As far as where we are in the magazine, we're getting close. We go to press the Friday after Memorial Day, which I want to say is May 29th. So 4 weeks from Friday, we go to press, and it's a big process. Our managing editor, Greg Tepper, is super organized. He does a heck of a job really assigning out different projects because it's the largest football magazine in the world. And it's a bear to put together if you're not organized. And luckily, Greg is super organized. He divvies out the assignments pretty well. The biggest part of it, obviously, is the high school football portion of it, and then getting the questionnaires in. I mean, you think about it's over 1,500 high schools in Texas that play football, from 6A, UIL, all the way down to private school 6-man, and in between all levels. So getting questionnaires out and getting questionnaires turned in is a big job, and we've had great response this year. I'm sure a lot of coaches are bored right now and are probably just getting their questionnaires into us, which is great. But I think in the UIL 11-man schools, I think we've got 4 high schools as of 5/25 on April 29th who have not turned questionnaires in the whole state. 4 high schools. I'm not going to call them out just yet. Hopefully they'll get their stuff in. If they don't get their stuff in, I may call them out on Twitter. So we've done a great job there. My role in the magazine is I run a lot of the high school caps. The DFW area, which is it's a broad term. It goes from basically the Brock area north to the border, east out to like Greenville or Sulphur Springs, I think, and then south down to Waco now, because Waco Midway and Waco High are in a DFW area district now. So it's a really wide area. So a lot of schools there. The Houston area, so there's a lot of schools in the Houston area, greater Houston area. I have El Paso previews as well, and Rio Grande Valley, Laredo. So I've got quite a bit. I think of the high schools, I write over 600 of the previews for the high school magazine. So it's quite a job, and but it's a lot of fun. It's a labor of love, and it really helps me get in the mode for high school football, reading through these questionnaires and kind of starting to get an idea of who's going to be teams to watch next year, maybe some sleeper teams and that kind of thing.
All right, very cool. And I actually am an insider myself with DCTF. The last few years, I've gotten the magazine mailed to me, which is really convenient. Also, a couple of the things I really like about it, you guys also have a premium insider podcast only available to insiders, TEP and Stepp. Talk about that a little bit.
It's really just a big high school football nerd fest. I mean, it's just me and Tepper just for an hour kind of just talking about whatever is going on in that week or in the off season, maybe the past couple of weeks, and just really deep diving and getting real into the weeds, so to speak, about the various things that are going on around Texas high school football, which is a year-round thing. It's going on year-round. There's news every week on the Texas high school football front. This year may be a little different because I know 7-on-7, but the off season with coaching changes and all the speculation with are we going to have a season next year, that kind of thing. So it's been pretty busy. We have a nice routine during the season with the Tep and Stepp podcast, which we move it to weekly during the football season, and we kind of do our game draft and talk about some of the top 10 games of the week across the state. And you would think, they just focus on the 6A schools in Dallas and Houston. We try to mix it up and cover, all classifications at all corners of the state. And that's one thing I think we're really proud of, that we do try to cover more than just the big metro areas and give everybody, at least if not every week, try to spread the love, so to speak. And we really get into the weeds and get into the real nitty gritty of high school football. And we call it a nerd cast, and it's kind of what it is. It's just two dudes nerding out about football for about an hour or so every week.
So yeah, I mean, like you said, you have to really love high school football, be pretty much a junkie to really embrace it and appreciate it. But that fits me perfectly, so I love it.
It's a niche group for sure, but we love that niche, so because we're a part of it.
Yeah. So if you are a big high school football fan, college football fan, you definitely should check out their insider subscription they have. I mean, it's a great deal because most of it it's not much more for an entire year that the whole cost of the magazine by itself is. So it's definitely a good deal. We
do have a good college football podcast, The Republic of Football, with Shehan Jayaraja and Ishmael Johnson. and you would think, oh, they're just going to talk about the Big 12. They go D1, FBS, all the way down to D3. I mean, they'll talk Mary Hardin Baylor, Lone Star Conference, Southland Conference. They'll talk about it all on the Republic of Football as well. So if you're a college football fan, that's a great podcast to listen to on Dave Campbell's as well. In addition to our daily show at noon every day, Texas Football Today, which is hosted by Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle. They do a show Monday through Friday, kind of a lunch hour show every Monday at noon. And it's kind of I don't want to call it a variety show, but there's some football on there, there's some interviews, and there's some fun things too. There's some bits as well. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I actually drop in almost every day, almost every weekday to check that out around lunchtime. And speaking of Lone Star Conference, that's pretty cool that they do talk LSC and some Angelo State. Vince actually gets to broadcast their games on Angelo State Ram TV. Pretty cool.
There you go. We love to give the small colleges some love too. We try to be all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm a big fan of the magazine there, Matt. I love your articles you have in there, man. Yeah, I definitely go to y'all for high school football, the Big 12 Conference. I for sure get a look at y'all's Lone Star Conference. I love to see who y'all have, you know, kind of coming out overall number one on the year and who's kind of stepping up. I'll be excited to see the upcoming issue. My question is for you, man, you know, looking toward last season, what's some of the big stories you saw last season that kind of stood out to you the most in the high school area?
So I think, you know, our cover last year, our secondary cover was North Shore and Duncanville. And we kind of had the run it back theme. You know, they had the Hail Mary game in 2018 that everyone still talks about and was, you know, one of the greatest games ever in high school football history. And we kind of thought with both teams, with what they had coming back, they would play again. And they did, just under different circumstances, because really the focus of that game in a lot of ways was who didn't play in the game. You know, Duncanville's quarterback tore his ACL in the semifinal game. He didn't play. North Shore stud receiver got hurt right before the playoffs started. He was out. And then their star running back gets kicked off the team the night before the state championship game. So it was weird. It was a weird thing, you know, that game with who didn't play in that game, so to speak. You know, the game happened, but it kind of lost a little luster, I'd say, overall. You know, Mart and what they did, you know, we thought Mart had a chance to win the state title, but we weren't sure. But we kind of said in the small school ranks, if Mart was going to win it, then they might win 5 state titles in a row. And they've got 3 in a row now, and they look loaded next year to win a 4th state title in the state's smallest 11-man classification, 2A Division II. And then, you know, how about Carthage? And that Carthage-Waco-La Vega state championship game was a really hyped state title game, and their head coach, Scott Surratt, and I lose track of how many state titles he has. I believe he has 7 state championships. So get this, Scott Surratt's got 7 state titles, and he's lost 6 playoff games in his time at Carthage. So he's been there 13 years, and he's won more state titles than he's lost playoff games. It's just an unbelievable stat, and Carthage wins another state, and guess what? They're dropping down to 4A division next year, so they might win an 8th.
Yeah, man, they're pretty fun to watch. I mean, those are a lot of great state championship football games we had this last season. I know this year it's kind of like we don't know what's going to happen exactly with everything that's, you know, going on. But before we had everything going on, what kind of stood out to you the most that you were thinking was really going to develop into this upcoming season for the fall?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest story overall is the UIL 100 celebration. So UIL is celebrating 100 years of football this year. You know, you've kind of seen some stuff online on Twitter about it. I think the UIL is going to do a great job, and I think, you know, provided we have the state championships, I'm confident we will. The UIL, I think the overall 100, it's going to be a big celebration this year of high school football and the UIL 100 celebration. When you look at some storylines that we're looking at, I mean, I think you got to start with North Shore and their chance for a three-peat with their quarterback, Demetrius Davis, the Virginia Tech commit, back for a 3rd year. Well, he's a 4-year starter, but he's looking for his 3rd state title as a quarterback, because that would begin to cement his legacy along with some of the guys like Riley Dodge, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, the great Lake Travis quarterbacks they've had in their history. Guys like that, he would be right up there with those guys if North Shore can win a 3rd straight state championship. You move down smaller classifications. I think in in Class 3A Division One and 3A Division Two, both 3A divisions I think are a little bit more wide open this year. I think with Brock and what they have, I think they have a chance to dethrone Grandview, who's won back-to-back state championships. I feel like in Division Two, it's really wide open. Gunter won it last year, but I think there's some teams that could really challenge to knock off the Tigers, most notably up in the Panhandle, Canadian.
Yeah, a lot of dangerous teams up in that one, man. My last question, of course, I'll go to your region, the DFW area. How many state championships you feeling they're going to pull in this season?
Whew. So I would say, I think both 5A divisions, I think the Dallas-Fort Worth area is going to be the favorite. With Shadow Creek and 5A Division 1 moving up to Class 6A this year, I think that opens the door for Denton Ryan to finally get that title. They've been it's been elusive the past 4 or 5 years or so. I think Aledo in Division 2 is still the favorite, but I think Ennis is poised to challenge them. So I think both 5As, the DFW area, should be the favorite in. 6A is a little more challenging. I think North Shore still gets the nod in Division 1, but Duncanville's and South Lake Carroll are going to be right there. And then in Division 2, Denton Geyer got to the state title game last year with their quarterback, Eli Stowers, who's committed to Texas A&M, tore his ACL in a state championship game. And so I know he's ahead of schedule in his recovery, but, you're still looking at a torn ACL. When is he going to come back? And then they have a new coach. John Walsh left Denton Geyer and former head coach. So challenge here. 3 overall. I'll say 3. I get both 5As, and the DFW area will get one more in another classification.
Yeah, awesome, man. Can't wait to see more high school football.
I was wondering, Matt, you mentioned how you actually do have a day job, so to speak. A lot of people probably think that this is all you do. You're just a full-time high school football expert and writer. So I'm kind of curious, when and how did you kind of get started doing this? What was the road that you took to get to where you are now, working with Dave Campbell's Texas Football?
Definitely not the traditional journalist path. I can definitely say that. So my degree is in kinesiology with a double minor in history and English. So basically what that means is I wanted to be a coach going to school. And doing my student teaching, I realized that I really didn't want to be in the classroom. It just wasn't for me. And, kind of some of my mentors told me, if you don't really love being in the classroom, you probably need to find something else to do, because you're not going to be rich being an educator by any means. So I got out of it and got into private industry, and the finance industry. I work for a big major bank in the United States, and I've been there for 16 years now. So right when my career at the bank got started is really when I started getting into high school football, as far as a journalist, and how I got into it was, we're talking 2003, 2004, basically. So Twitter wasn't around, Facebook wasn't around. I don't even think MySpace was around. I mean, it was pretty much message board talk. And there were high school football message boards all over the place. And I started posting on message boards and writing almost like game previews and just talking about what I thought was going to happen that week in certain games. And a gentleman who ran a website called Texas Prep Extra, which was part of Rivals.com, which I think everybody knows what Rivals.com is, a recruiting network, saw what I was doing and basically offered me an internship working for Texas Prep Extra, because he felt like I knew what I was talking about, and I guess some of my predictions seemed to come true. And so it was just an internship for 2 years, and then I started getting a couple $100 a month, for doing this, just kind of part-time, and just through the years, it just kind of slowly grew. And I started to, I think really when I started covering 7-on-7 heavily and started to really meet coaches, because coaches are weird. I mean, high school football coaches are different guys. They don't trust very easily, and they're not real hip to just a voice on the phone or an email. They like to meet you face to face, and if they can meet you face to face and I guess size you up, so to speak, they can kind of know if they'll trust you or not. And as I started to meet more and more coaches out at 7-on-7s, because I got more bang for my buck at a 7-on-7, because there'd be 16 teams there at one place. And I could really get a lot done at those things. Just started to get the trust of coaches more and more, and I started to kind of get these sources built up over time. And, just like any business, it's a relationship business, and I've been lucky enough to cultivate and develop a lot of relationships in my time covering high school football. And regardless of what site that I've worked for multiple different sites, on rivals.com, scout.com, that kind of thing. I was still able to kind of keep my own personal brand and build that up. And then Twitter definitely helped that as well, because I got on Twitter in 2012 and kind of built it from there. And I think Twitter's helped me a little bit as well. But, working for Dave Campbell's is kind of the pinnacle for me, because it's always been so respected, and I've always read the magazine, since I was a little kid. So when I got the offer to work for Dave Campbell's, it was just a no-brainer, and it's an honor and a privilege to work and really make sure that I'm part of that legacy that Mr. Campbell started back in 1960 on a kitchen table in Waco, putting out a great product that Mr. Campbell is proud of.
Awesome. And you mentioned Dave Campbell's has been going since 1960 when he started that up. One of my favorite things actually about that insider subscription is you can actually go back and look at digital editions of every single magazine going back to 1960. It's fun to go through those things.
It's a cool thing. That's one of the cool. I'm a real dork, and I'll go in and look at all the old magazines, and there's not a ton of 1960s floating around out there. I mean, the original Dave Campbell's, the very first one. There's not. We have a couple in the office that are almost under lock and key because they're so precious. I mean, but there's not a ton of them floating around, and for me to go in and be able to flip through the 1960 Dave Campbell's is pretty cool. And then I get a kick out of looking at the old ads. I mean, you look at those old Dave Campbell's magazines, there's cigarette and beer ads in there and all kinds of stuff. It's crazy to see how all the old ads in the old Dave Campbell's.
Yeah, I probably have every magazine since about 1990 or so. So I have a lot of them, but it is really cool to be able to go back and look at the really old ones. And
especially kind of become a historian of your own high school football team. And that's what I did. Is I went through and started looking at my alma mater, and I read through every preview every year of my alma mater just to get an idea of the history of I'm from Everman, and to go look at Everman's 1960 preview to 2019 is pretty cool to get a real history. And it's not a full history, but it's close for Everman because they didn't start playing football until the mid 50s. So kind of get a history of the whole program is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. So 7-on-7 was canceled, and we don't know, everything's up in the air. There's no way to really know for sure what's going to happen with sports in the fall, but kind of walk us through the timeline of things and what, are there any benchmark moments that are going to tell us beforehand whether there's going to be football in the fall, or at least as we expect it to usually be?
So, my personal opinion is we will have football this year, and I think we'll start on time. I hope we'll have fans in the stands as well. I think that's a big part of high school football in Texas is the community aspect of it. I'm very hopeful that we'll have that. I'm not an epidemiologist, and I'm not there's people a lot smarter than me that are working on that, and I tend to be the guy who wants to listen to people who are smarter than me on things that I don't know much about. But I think the biggest thing, is summer strength and conditioning. Most of the time in the summer, you have the UIL allows the schools a certain amount of time for summer strength and conditioning. I want to see by mid-June if that's going on. If schools have started to have their students back on campus, at least to do summer strength and conditioning. I think the next big kind of marker is going to be coaching school, which is July 19th, I believe, to the 21st in San Antonio. As of now, that's still happening. Coaching school is kind of the big event right before the season starts. It's kind of, the big, kind of the end of the summer for the coaches, really, because right after that, they kind of go get to work. So I think if we have coaching school, I think we're pretty much, it'll be a good sign. I think the governor is going to dictate a lot of this too. I mean, you look at, where the state of Texas is starting to reopen on May 1st. To some extent, not all the way through, but restaurants are going to start opening up. I think if school is in session, that's going to be a big thing too. Is look for an announcement from the governor. If he says I'm giving the okay for schools to reopen in the fall, then I think that's pretty much a given that we'll have football. But if the governor says I'm not giving the okay to reopen the schools, I can't see how we'll have football in the fall right away if the schools aren't open. So I think that's going to be a big thing as well. And then the next big date overall is August 3rd, because that's when practice will begin for all high schools this year. Since no one had spring football this year, everyone will start practice on August 3rd. hopefully.
So one thing that's interesting that you mentioned is the possibility of football without fans in the stands. If that was to happen, do you think that the UIL would allow Friday games to be broadcast live so that people could actually see the games?
My guess would be yes. I don't have any inside info. I'm just it is more common sense to me that if there's no fans in the stands, I think the UIL would almost have to relax their Friday night restrictions on live TV broadcasts. So I do think that, personally, I think that would happen if there were no fans in the stands.
Yeah, I agree. People would not be happy if they weren't allowed to go to the games and they weren't even allowed to watch the games in anyway. So I think that would probably be a necessity. So I wanted to talk about some of the Concho Valley districts, how you think things are going to shake out. I figure this stuff is probably pretty fresh in your mind right now since you've been writing so many capsules for all these districts and teams. And I actually have the districts. I think I have all the districts here that have Concho Valley teams in them, and we'll start with 6A with Region 1, which of course District 2 with Central now back in the West Texas district where they have always wanted to be.
Where they belong. That's where they belong. That's where they belong. You know, it's weird having San Angelo and DFW. Yeah. You know, I think Midland leads the favorite. I mean, you know, they got the quarterback back. I know they lose a stud receiver, but Clint Hartman's really got that program going. I think they're the clear favorite in this district. I think there's going to be a real battle for second place. I think between Central and Odessa Permian. I do think Permian will be a little bit better this year. They were kind of young last year, and that was they had an up and down year. I think Permian will and San Angelo will be kind of right there battling for second place. And then I think fourth place. My pick is Abilene High to get fourth. Although, you know, Friendship's improved, they lose a little bit. You know, they lose the really good quarterback they had last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they replace him. But I think you're gonna have a dogfight for fourth between Abilene and Friendship. I'm giving the nod to Abilene High at the moment. And then you got Midland and Odessa kind of rounding things out.
Right. Yeah, I'd mostly agree with that. It's hard to see anybody being the favorite other than Lee, just with what they have coming back and what they did last year, the last couple of years, really. Of course, San Angelo Central had everybody's number there for several years until they got moved out of the district, but then they just weren't quite as good. And I think they're expecting to start getting better this coming year, so it'll be interesting to see how much better and whether they can actually challenge Lee, which should be.
They got the quarterback. I mean, Malachi Brown's back for another year. I mean, he's a really good player. He's fun to watch.
Absolutely, really exciting dual threat quarterback to watch.
Yeah, and definitely feel like there's an advantage for the Cats over the Odessa Permian at least. So I think, definitely that second place spot could be wide open there for Central.
But I think a big thing in that game is where is that game played? I mean, I don't have the schedule in front of me. If that game's in San Angelo, I think it's a big edge to the Bobcats. And if it's at Ratliff, it's probably more of an edge to Permian. I think in the Little Southwest Conference, home field advantage, you know, a lot of times in high school football, it doesn't matter that much. I do think in that district, there is, you know, it's worth at least a field goal to me.
Yeah, and that game is going to be in San Angelo this coming season.
There you go. Might have to give the edge to the Bobcats.
And home field advantage, yeah, it is a real thing in this district. And I know in like 2015, 2017, Permian went into both games as the favorite, but they were both in San Angelo, and the Bobcats were able to pull out some really tough, hard-fought, close games.
A lot of crazy people wearing orange and blue. Yeah. A lot of crazies wearing orange and blue at San Angelo when the Bobcats play at home.
Yeah, that 2015 game, there were at least 20,000 fans packed in. And
I was at that game. That was the game I was at. And it was a ton of fun. It was a blast.
Was that the last one you were at in San Angelo?
Yeah, it's the last time I've been to a game at San Angelo. I've seen the Bobcats a couple other times, but that was the last game in San Angelo that I saw.
So thinking about Friendship, you know, since Coach Northcutt took over a few years ago for Brad Davis, it took him a while to get going. You know, their first couple of years were pretty rough, which, you know, he installed a completely different system and everything. But they were a whole lot better last year, and people I think are wondering how much of that was just the quarterback they had move in from Bishop Gorman. Do you think that they are getting better as a program, or do you think that was a one-year thing, or is this just kind of a year that we have to see what they really have?
Yep. My guess is they're improving as a program, but make no mistake about it, Donovan Smith was really a big part of what they did last year, and that's a big hole to fill. I think they're better across the board than they have been, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough. Abilene High, I think, is the favorite just because I think they're just a little more battle tested. Playing in that Metroplex district, I think, is going to help them now they're going back out west.
I agree, and it'll be interesting to see if Abilene can kind of get back to form because they were such a good team for so long, winning a state championship, and then just kind of the last few years have kind of been a little bit up and down. So what do you think the situation is there?
Well, their last great team was that 2016 team that lost to DeSoto in the regional semifinals up in Wichita Falls. And I was at that game, and DeSoto won state that year, and Abilene High had them beat. And you asked Todd Peterman, who was the coach of DeSoto at the time, he'll tell you that Abilene High, that if the winner is going to win the state title. So, Abilene High doesn't fumble at the end of the game, which that was a disputed call as well. I think his knee was down. Abilene may have another state title on their record books if that happens. So, I kind of talking to folks that are close to the program, they kind of felt like there was a couple of down classes coming through the pipeline, and I think it just happened to coincide with them moving into a Metroplex district. It kind of compounded things a little bit, and they've had some bad luck with injuries and that kind of thing. I think they finally have a quarterback who's returning that they feel like they can count on. And I think that combined with Abilene usually has some good skill kids as well. I think they'll find a way to get into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and it was kind of a similar situation with San Angelo as far as moving into that district for 2 years when they did have a couple of down classes as well. So it was just kind of bad timing. Bad timing with that.
Timing's everything.
Mm-hmm. And now that they're moving back, they do have a few really strong classes coming up, really starting with what's going to be the junior class is really good, and then the next two classes behind them are really strong. So it'll be interesting to see if they kind of get back to that level that they were, and if they can get back to where they were in 2016, which was a really great team, the best team that they've had in a long time.
No doubt. That 2016 San Angelo team was a lot of fun to watch, and you got to wonder if the quarterback doesn't get hurt there in the second quarter against Allen. They possibly could have come back and won that game and made a run.
Yeah, that's one of those big what-if questions, and I think people still kind of talk about that some around here. What could have happened?
No doubt.
Because he was having a good game in that game. I think he was on pace for like 300 passing, 100 rushing, something like that, before he went down a little bit before halftime.
Yeah.
Looking at, let's see, the rest of Region 1 here, how do you kind of see things shaking out once they get to the playoffs?
I think the team to watch, everyone's going to talk about South Lake Carroll and Allen in Division 1. I think the team to watch is Arlington Martin. Martin on paper looks really good this year. I think they're a team in the Division 1 bracket to keep an eye on. When you look over at Division 2, I think Geyer is the team to beat. Just because of the quarterback coming back and kind of, making the state title game last year. Keep an eye on Arlington High as well. They got to the third round of the playoffs last year, lost to Geyer in the third round of the playoffs. I think Arlington High is poised for a big year this year and could potentially set up a rematch with Geyer in the regional final. As far as, West Texas, I just, this little Southwest Conference, I think the third round is probably the limit, and it's just going to depend on matchups there. But I don't see anyone in that district getting out of the third round this year.
All right, let's go to our next district here. It's 4A D1 with the District 2 with Lakeview, Fort Stockton, Big Spring, and Andrews. Tell me about that one.
So, Andrews is the clear favorite. They've kind of run this district the past couple of years, and I don't expect any different. I think Andrews is head and shoulders above the rest of this district. I think the real battle here is after that. I'd probably give a slight edge to Fort Stockton for second place. Slight edge for them over Big Spring and Lakeview, and I think Big Spring and Lakeview, you can kind of flip a coin there with those two. The big key here is to try to get at least to, you don't want to be that 4 seed and playing a district champion from District 1. 2 years ago, District 2 swept District 1 in the first round of playoffs, but last year District 1 made it 2-2. So, they kind of closed the gap a little bit. So you want to try to get at least up to third, if not second. Try to get up to the second level to have a more favorable first round matchup.
And looking at Lakeview with Coach Guevara the last few years, what have you seen from that program, or what do you think about the program as far as the kind of progress they're making? Because they were on a really long losing streak when he took over, and that extended through the first season. They finally got their win, and they've had a little bit more success. They have a really good offense. They can throw the ball a ton and score. So what do they need to do to kind of get up to another level?
I think the big thing is he's brought some stability to the program, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that they just didn't have a lot of stability there, and I think Coach Guevara has done a good job of just kind of stabilizing things and implementing a system and having something that kids can count on and believe in going forward. On paper, Lakeview should be better. They bring back 6 offensive starters and 8 defensive starters. Their JV was 5-5 last year, so they were competitive. So I think the biggest thing to take the next step is going to be really improving numbers in the program and trying to develop some depth. And that's always the key when you're at this kind of fringe 4A, 5A level, is really finding a way to develop depth and keeping kids in the program, because you have 30 or 40 kids go out for the freshman team, and then by the time they're seniors, there's like 16 left. Trying to keep those kids in the program and keep them engaged and make that where you start out with 30 or 40 freshmen, and then by the time they're seniors, there's still 20 to 25 playing, because that's where your depth, your backups, your special teams guys come in, and that's how you build a program from the ground up. And I think that's the biggest thing now, is keeping the numbers high throughout the program.
Yeah, a lot of it is just having a little bit of success, keeping the numbers up, having confidence that you can win, and then hopefully you can get things rolling. Yes.
Yeah, success breeds success.
Yeah, Matt, I want to ask you, man, real quick. I saw over in one of the districts up there was Canyon. I know Canyon was kind of a surprise team last year. You're up there in District 3. What are you looking at from Canyon going into this football season?
They lost a really good group of seniors, and they got hit with injuries towards the end of the season that kind of derailed what looked to be a promising season. I think Dumas is the favorite. The Demons last year went 13-1, got all the way to the regional final before losing to Springtown, and Dumas brings a lot back. They're the team, I think, to beat in the Panhandle, maybe in the entire region. Because you look at District 4, Springtown and Decatur both graduated really heavily last year. And I think that opens the door maybe for Dumas to come in and maybe win that region. Dumas has a brutal non-district schedule. No one wants to play him. Had some success now, so they're playing Waco La Vega to open the season in Sweetwater. That just tells you what kind of schedule Dumas is playing this year. But I think they're the favorite. But I think a team like Canyon, especially if they can stay healthy, should be right there in the mix for that second spot out of District 3 and getting a good kind of playoff draw with a higher seed.
Yeah, I know how good Waco La Vega is, so I got to admit, man, I think that matchup against Dumas is going to be a really good one to see in that first week of the football season.
Absolutely. It's a really good measuring stick game for Dumas to see how they stack up against a team who probably is going to be the number 1 team in the state in Class 4A Division I to open the season.
All right, let's move to 3A D1, which has some really interesting teams in this region, especially. Looking at District 3 with the Concho Valley teams, you've got Wall, TLCA. What do you see out of that district? Obviously Wall is really good.
Yeah, so this district loses a little bit of firepower because Eastland has dropped down to Division II. And they still have the Texas Tech commit Baron Morton at quarterback back for another year. Wall is clearly the favorite in this district. They're kind of head and shoulders above the rest. I think Jim Ned and Clyde are still right there, fighting for that second spot. Keep an eye on Breckenridge, though. Breckenridge had a really down year last year, and they've got a new head coach who comes in from Longview, the defensive coordinator, Casey Pierce. He's a Breckenridge alum, got a lot of pride in that Buckaroo blood of his, and I expect Breckenridge to take a step up and compete for the playoffs. I think early in TLC are probably in for a long year.
I agree, and Vince and I both saw Wall and Easton last year for one of our Concho Sports Network high school football games of the week, and we actually got to see Wall twice. both teams really good. Baron Morton, we were both pretty excited to see him. Of course, he had a tough game. I mean, he was good, but going against Wall defense is a tough order.
Yeah.
So,
Wall had a special team last year, and they should be pretty good again this year. The problem in Region 1 is you're looking at, Brock in District 4, and they bring back nearly everyone from last year's team that won the region. So you've got to peg Brock as the regional favorite once again.
And Wall, this time, they've had a lot of battles with Brock. Now they have to probably get him right off the bat. Going to be tough.
Yeah, they'll get them early if they both win the district. I think they probably see each other in the third round of the playoffs.
All right, let's check out 3AD2, see who we have here. So we have a couple of districts with Concho Valley teams. Starting in District 2, Ballinger, Bangs, Brady, Ingramore, Grape Creek, and Sonora. What do you see in that district?
So I think Ballinger has a chance to be a real sleeper team in Region 1 this year. I think the Bearcats have been pretty good the last couple of years, and I think getting rid of Cisco was helpful for them as well. I think they're the favorite. Sonora's probably right there, number 2. Sonora's fallen off a little bit from their real elite teams they had 4 or 5 years ago, but they're still solid. But I give the edge to Ballinger in this district. I think Brady is a good bet for number 3. I really like Coach Easterwood and what he's done at Brady. I think they're a solid 3. Keep an eye on Grape Creek. I think Grape Creek's going to be a lot better this year, and I think they've got an outside shot to compete with Bangs and Ingram Moore for that 4th playoff spot. I think Grape Creek could really show some improvement.
Yeah, I know people around here would love to see Grape Creek have some success, so hopefully they do continue to improve. And looking there at Ballinger and Brady, it's kind of interesting. Coach Lipsy at Ballinger has done a great job, and he came from Brady. And now, like you said, Coach Easterwood down in Brady is doing a pretty good job too. So, and I know those two teams don't really like each other too much anyway. They're big rivals. We saw that game, Vince and I, first game of the season last year.
Yeah.
And now they're
overtime game, wasn't it?
It wasn't
Was it
overtime, but
game
it
or-
did go down to the last play.
Okay.
I think there was a pass in the end zone that was picked off by Ballinger to hold on.
I may have to come down and check that game out this year. I always enjoy a good rivalry game where two teams don't care for each other very much. Those are always the fun ones.
And I don't know where the game is this year. If it's in Ballinger, I know Ballinger is probably one of my favorite small school stadiums out here. It's just a nice looking stadium. Pretty good.
I think that one's going to be Bangs, I think. Because didn't they play in Ballinger last time?
Yeah, they redraw those, so you never know. They always redraw everything, with the district stuff.
Yeah,
so.
You never know for sure after realignment, and I haven't checked it yet. All right. So let's take a look at District 4 here. You got Reagan County as the kind of Concho Valley team in that area. So how do you see things shaking out there? That's a lot of travel for the kids from Big Lake.
Yeah.
I guess Cahoma and Stanton aren't too bad, but the other ones are some long trips.
Yeah, Abernathy had the great year last year, but they lose their stud. There's a lot of questions in this district. I don't really have a good feel for anyone in this district, to be honest. I think Abernathy, just because off their track record, should be the favorite. But Idalu's had some good teams in the past, and I think they'll be right there as far in the mix for second place. But other than that, it's kind of a crapshoot. I think it's pretty wide open, and I think anyone aside from Idalou and Abernathy should be in the mix for those other 2 playoff spots.
And what about the region as a whole? How do you see it shaking out?
Canadians a favorite. Canadians dominated this region the past few years, and I don't see any reason why Canadians shouldn't be right there in the mix again as the clear favorite. And they just seem to reload every year. They always lose a lot of guys at graduation. They always have just a pipeline of dudes ready to come in and make an impact. And Coach Ketting does a great job with that program. I think Ballinger's a sleeper, and I think Crane is another sleeper. I think both of those teams, I don't know if they're ready to take on Canadian yet, but I think they're both ready to make a little bit of noise come playoff time and kind of push to play around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Matt. Canadians always been a really fun team to watch. So yeah, it's going to have to go through them to see who can move on to the state championship.
All right, let's check out 2A D1. So if we look at District 4, we have Cisco and Winters, which are out there on the edge of the Concho Valley on the eastern edge. What do you think about that district, Matt?
So, this is interesting just because of Cisco dropping down from 3A Division II and having a deep run. They got eliminated by Canadian last year. I think Cisco, San Saba the last 2 years has had, just fantastic seasons, but I know they're losing a really decorated group of seniors. I mean, you lose a Division I guy at that level, 2A Division I, and you lose a Division I quarterback, it hurts. But I think Coach Aguirre has done a good job at San Saba keeping things going. So I'd probably go Cisco and San Saba 1-2 in this district. I think Coleman has a chance to make a move up to number 3. I think the Blue Cats look to be improved this year, and I think you're going to have Winters and DeLeon kind of fighting it out for that 4th and final playoff spot.
Yeah, Vincent Winters is another team that we saw a couple of times this past fall. Coach McCarthy's done a great job there. What do you see from him as far as how he's developed the program? They're running the kind of the flex bone. They've been pretty efficient, had some success, but obviously there's some really tough teams in this district.
I think he's done a great job. He's given that team an identity and something they can believe in. And I think the key there is developing a quarterback that can run that system and make those reads. And I think now that they've had the system implemented for a couple of years, they're going to be able to have a young guy come in to replace a senior graduated who knows how to run that offense and has been in that system for a while and is going to be able to make the reads. And I think he's done a good job of keeping them competitive when sometimes they don't always have pound for pound the best athletes in this district, which is really a tough district.
And who's your Region 1 favorite there for 2AD1?
So I think we're looking at a clash between Post and Cisco. Cisco graduates heavy this year, but they still dropping down is gonna they get some love there. But Post made the state title game last year, and they bring back quite a bit. I want to say they bring back 8 starters on both sides of the ball. They only graduated 5 or 6 kids from last year's team. So I think I give the edge to Post right now, but I think you're looking at a showdown between Post and Cisco at some point in the regional final.
All right, 2AD2. We have one of my favorite districts out here, which is the one, it's a little bit different this year because they've moved to Region 4. That's what's really different about it. All these teams in District 14 and Junction was
that's the big story in this district. That's the big story here is this district going from Region, I think, 2 to Region 4. So your playoff path is further south now. And if you can get out of that first round, I think the teams in this district can make some hay come playoff time. I think Junction's the favorite. They're dropping down from Division I. They were 4-7 last year, so they got 4th place in their district last year. But they dropped down from Division I, and they've got back, I believe, 15 or 16 starters total. I think 9 on offense and 7 on defense. So you got to make Junction the favorite. Cristobal had a great year last year. I think they went 10-2. Had a really nice season. But if memory serves me correctly, they're graduating a good group of seniors. And at this level, when you lose 5 or 6, doesn't sound like a lot, but it's double it because these guys are playing both ways. So 5 or 6 is really like 12 kids that you're losing overall. So I still think Cristobal's got enough to hold off Miles and El Dorado. It's kind of a crapshoot after that. I think Miles, El Dorado, and Menard, you can kind of put them in just pick a team out of a jar, and you can probably get it's just going to be kind of a crapshoot because I think they're kind of evenly matched. You have question marks with Miles and El Dorado with coaching changes as well, but they haven't hired coaches to my knowledge as of yet. So there's some question marks there. So that'll be an interesting race, I think, for those 3rd and 4th playoff spots. But I think Junction and Cristobal are a cut above the rest of this district.
Of course, El Dorado was really good last year. They kind of battled Cristobal the last game of the season, and we were there for the district championship and pulled it out. Of course, Michael Johnson, head coach, has moved on, so it's going to be interesting to see who they hire. Also, Miles, who Coach Bowles there did a great job.
Yeah, that was kind of shocking. We saw last year, we thought maybe the Bulldogs would have a pretty good season, try to make a run to reclaim district, and things just kind of fell apart for the Bulldogs near the end of the year.
Yeah, we featured two of their games against Cross Plains and El Dorado, games that we thought were going to be good games, which is why one of the reasons we put them on the schedule. And man, they had a tough time in both of those games, even though they were overall a pretty solid team. All right, I think we have our last district here. Going down to 6-man, which honestly I have to admit I don't know a whole lot about. So I'm glad we have you here.
I'm not really a 6-man guy either. You're getting me out of my comfort zone here.
I saw that look on your face when I put that on the screen.
Yeah, we're 6-man. I mean, I know, I really don't. I mean, I know that. I guess your district is District 8, right?
Yeah. So we have District 8 and District 14 has a few teams. Well, actually, District 14 has teams that are all like right around San Angelo, within 20, 30 miles.
I know like the powerhouses are, and I like Richland Springs. Obviously, I know how good Richland Springs is, and teams like that. So I know Bront used to play 11-man not too long ago, so I know. Erie and County did as well, so I'll be, Erie and County, I think, this is their first year in a district, and my old head coach at my old high school came from Erie and County, Dale Keeling, so I know a little bit about Erie and County. So I know Baird in District 13 had a good year as an independent. They're dropping down. They should be pretty solid as well. And usually I know May right there around Brownwood is usually a pretty good little 6-man team as well. But yeah, 6-man's not my bread and butter for sure. I'd be lying if I tried to act like I was an expert with these teams.
Yeah. Almost all of these teams in District 8 and 14 that are around San Angelo used to be 11-man teams, but as the cutoffs have gotten higher, and these towns aren't really growing, they've all kind of dropped over the years.
The cutoff kind of jumped them and jumped ahead of them.
Absolutely. All right. So I think we've covered all the districts in the Concho Valley. We appreciate you kind of breaking that down because I know Vince and I haven't really dug into that yet. Of course, you have to because you're working on the magazine.
You need your Dave Campbell's magazine, right? You're waiting on the Dave Campbell's magazine to come in so you can dig into it, right?
For to kind of start things off.
I need to get my subscription.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get on that.
Come on now, Vince. You got to listen to Shay over here. You got to get it done.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it for sure. All right, so do you have any interesting high school football stories from the Concho Valley area over the years that kind of stand out for you? Any games or teams or any kind of thing that maybe behind the scenes stuff that people may not know about?
So the 2016 San Angelo team was really special for me. The central team, that was a really good team. Going to watch that Central Permian game at San Angelo Stadium in 2015 was really awesome, and really everything that really Texas high school football to me was all about. Just being able to watch two, legacy programs in Texas duke it out in front of a loud and rowdy crowd of 20,000 fans was really cool. That 2016 San Angelo team I know was really special just because of how good they were, and that was the most recent great team to come out of San Angelo. But I remember I was a kid, San Angelo in 1991, I think, made a deep run when they had Shea Morenz at quarterback. They got all the way to the state semifinals and lost to Killeen. I was a kid, but I remember those teams, pretty well. Just hearing about it, reading about it in the newspaper in Fort Worth. Talking about how good that San Angelo team was that year. So those are kind of the big memories. Now, I've seen the Wall play. I mean, the first time I ever saw Wall play was they played New Boston in the state semifinals over at Waco Midway, and I thought New Boston was going to win, and Wall just came in there and just dominated that game and got to the state championship game and lost to Cameron Yo the next week. But that was a really great Wall Hawks squad. And then, I've seen Lakeview. There was one year Lakeview had a really good squad, and they had a quarterback that was really good. This might have been in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. They had a really good team. I think they went to the area playoffs that year, maybe even to the regional semifinals. They had a really good run. I just can't remember the name of that quarterback for the life of me. I think he's a coach now somewhere. It's not Sterling Gilbert. It's after him. I think his first name was John David or something, I think.
Yeah, you're right. John David Baker.
Yes. Yeah, J.D. Baker. He was a very good quarterback, and Lakeview had a really good squad that year, and I think they went maybe to the third round of the playoffs. So I've run into the Concho Valley team. You know, I'm based in the Metroplex, but I get around quite a bit, and I've run into the Concho Valley teams. What I really want to do is get down there and see teams like Ballinger and Brady, some of the 3As kind of go at it and play, because that's always fun, and it gives me a chance to get down to San Angelo and go eat some good food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely, if you can make it down to see that Ballinger Brady game, that's definitely a good one to see.
Let's put that one on my possible to-do list for sure.
Two coaches that are really good guys, fun to talk to. And you mentioned, so Lakeview, yeah, they've had some good quarterbacks there over the years, a few that have played college football. And of course, Sterling Gilbert there in the mid-90s had a great team. Went to Angelo State, and of course now he's a D1 coach. Also, you mentioned Shea Marin's 1994 Dave Campbell's Texas football cover boy.
Yes, that's right. It was a really good player, and San Angelo Central had a really good team that back then. So I was just a kid. I was like 10, but they had a good team. Yeah, they got all the way to the state semifinals that year.
Yep, I was a kid, and I graduated from Central and played football after that, but I definitely remember following those teams. I still have vivid memories of that playoff run, the Permian game that year that was in San Angelo, went down to the wire, kind of a heartbreak loss for the Bobcats, and I remember that Killeen game that everybody felt like they should have won in the semifinals. So a lot of memories from those teams in the 90s under Coach Dan Gandy. All right, so do you have any, I know one of them that you're going to talk about, the North Shore Duncanville game from a couple years ago, but what are some of the best games that you've ever seen in person?
So, yeah, obviously North Shore Duncanville is number one. Some of the others that are great, 2002, Midland High and Converse Judson state championship game at the Alamo Dome.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the first time Midland High had been in a state it'd been in the playoffs in like 50 years, and they got all the way to the state championship. Probably should have won it, and they got hit with the 80-yard touchdown with less than 30 seconds left to lose the state championship. That was a crazy one. The famous South Lake Carroll Trinity game at Texas Stadium in 06, I believe, when there were 60,000 people in the stadium for that game. There's no doubt about that. That's the famous fake punt game where Trinity tried to fake punt to seal the game, and South Lake stopped and scored a touchdown late to win the game. That was just an unbelievable atmosphere for a second-round playoff game, I believe, that year. Just both of them were defending state champions and had, long winning streaks coming into the game. So that was really a fun game to watch. Another great Concho Valley game that I saw was Sonora and Wascom. And I want to say 2014, they played over in Glen Rose in the state semifinals. And that was that was a really, really good Sonora team. I believe Creighton Phillips was the coach that year for Sonora, and they had a heck of a team. And they had a chance, Wascom ended up winning the state championship that year, and Sonora, the game ended with Sonora on the 3-yard line. And I think if they had another 15 seconds, they probably would have powered it in and scored a touchdown, but they just kind of ran out of timeouts. And they tried to throw a pass in the end zone with no timeouts left, and the quarterback got sacked, and they couldn't get to the line in time to spike it and run one more play. So, I think if Sonora had one more timeout or maybe an extra 30 seconds, they might have been able to win that game. So those are kind of the ones that jump off the page. But I always do my top 10, top 15 games of all time every couple of years and post them on TexasFootball.com. But those are the ones that are right now at the top of my list.
All right, guys. Time for overtime. All right, so yeah, I
love the graphics.
Thanks. I just did that this afternoon. I decided I would give this and that lead off at the beginning kind of a name and do that because we like to ask a few quick hitter questions for fun here at the end. So now it's called overtime. We have a name. All right.
There you go.
So let's start.
Gotta brand it.
Let's start off with what should be an easy one. Yes, sir. Ford or Chevy?
I'm a Chevy guy now. I was a Ford guy, but I drive a Chevy now.
Yeah, I've driven both. I used to have a Chevy. Now I have a Ford. So kind of the opposite. And
they're both great. There's nothing wrong with either one of them.
Yeah, you really can't be a homer when it comes to cars, in my opinion, because, you whatever works for you at the time, and they're always changing them. So.
I just get whatever the dealership gives me. I'm like, just give me something.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to find a good deal for one thing. That's important. All right, you have a favorite sports movie?
Major League.
Yeah, that's one we haven't talked about yet. We've been asking this the last few weeks, and that's definitely one of the best funny ones for sure. I love that movie.
I mean, I know I'm a football guy, but I love all sports. Major League is just all, and I love comedies. Major League's great.
Good one. And speaking of that, what is your second favorite sport besides football? I assume football is your favorite sport.
Yeah, well, actually, I played basketball in college. I don't look like it. I'm a bigger guy now, but I played basketball in college. So basketball is number 2.
Well, I was a wide receiver in football, and I don't think anybody would guess that now. So
I know, right? Yeah. Time does a number on us.
For sure. All right. Okay. Let's talk about food. I know you love food. I know on Twitter you're always posting when you're gallivanting across the state during football season, all of your stops, having to show off all your barbecue and Mexican food and everything. So first off, if you had to pick one, I'm going to kill you with this question. If you had to pick one for the rest of your life, barbecue or Mexican food, what would you choose?
Barbecue. And here's why. You can put brisket on a taco.
Yes. Yeah.
See, we're so good. We're perfect on that one.
Oh yeah. See, we had.
You can put brisket. You put brisket on a tortilla and it's a taco, so it's barbecue and Mexican food. Yeah. Mexican food. I can't really take an enchilada and make barbecue out of that. I mean, I don't think a barbecue enchilada would taste very good.
True, and that's the second person that's given us that exact answer for the same reason. Because we had Garrick Scott on, former San Angelo Central linebacker, a couple of weeks ago, and he said the same thing. Hey, you can put the barbecue on a tortilla. You got Mexican food, so you can't do it.
Smart man, and a good player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good answer. And so far, everybody has answered barbecue. I'm kind of surprised, but I definitely understand it. I think I would have to choose barbecue. For one thing, you can put stuff in the tortilla. You can have a brisket burrito, brisket taco, and you're good to go. So makes a lot of sense.
Don't get me wrong. It'd be tough to do without Mexican food. It would be tough. But if I had to pick one, it'd be barbecue.
That would be tough for me because I love enchiladas, so that would be tough to give up. What is your favorite area of the state to eat at? What has the best food?
Wow. I'll say that I'm gonna give a very political answer here. Okay. First one is I think the Rio Grande Valley is the best for me. I enjoy visiting the Rio Grande Valley, eating down there more than anything. Obviously, the Mexican food is great, but you can find really good barbecue and other things down there really good. But I will say this: per capita, it's hard to beat San Angelo. The restaurant selection in San Angelo per capita is pretty incredible. It's crazy how many good restaurants are in a town that size. So shout out to San Angelo. You guys are doing okay.
Yeah, you're playing to the crowd a little there, the audience, but it is true about the per capita. I mean, we have a lot of restaurants and a lot of really good restaurants for a town this size.
I've never had a bad meal in San Angelo. Never.
And Franco's. Always got to go to Franco's when you come to San Angelo.
Franco's is right there. Franco's is right there. It's a running joke on Dave Campbell's. You know, we did because Coach Davis he likes Hidalgos, and so one of our former writers, Adam Bodecker, is from San Angelo originally. He's a big Franco's guy, and he got upset when Coach Davis was repping Hidalgos. It was pretty funny, but we made a fake commercial, and we had some fun at Bodecker's expense. But I mean, I'll go to Henry's and eat an orange chicken fried steak every day of the week. That place is great.
Sure.
So there's just all kinds of really good restaurants in San Angelo.
Yeah, I remember that commercial a few years ago, and for a split second when they put it on, because I think it was on Texas Football Today, that we have a new sponsor. For a split second, I was like, what? They're sponsoring this show. I was like, wow, amazing. And then, of course, after a few seconds, I realized, oh, of course, it's a joke. It was pretty funny.
It was a good bit. That's a Max Thompson special there, and he did a heck of a job with that. Bodecker was pretty pissed off about it for a while. It was pretty funny. He gets fired up about his Mexican food. I don't blame him. I do too.
And I've talked to Max Thompson. I think we're going to have him on sometime too. The tough thing for him,
Poochie.
What's that?
His nickname Poochie, the Great Poochie.
And the funny thing is, I mean, I guess it's not very funny. It's just interesting timing. Of course, he had worked for the Dallas XFL team, and when I sent him a message to ask if he wanted to come on the show, it was literally like 5 minutes before the league announced that they were shutting down. Crazy time.
Yeah, he told me you were the Grim Reaper, basically.
Oh,
it sounds like so. Yeah.
Sorry, Max.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that because I think it was right before.
He told me that story yesterday, actually.
Because I think Texas Football Today came on, and I came on like in the middle of the show, and people were saying, saying something about hope Max is okay on the show in the chat. And I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then I went back and I was like, oh, Max, sorry.
Yeah.
Bad timing. Man.
He was pretty mad at you no, just kidding. He wasn't mad. He it's just bad timing. It's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, I don't think, well, he may be superstitious about sports, but probably not that.
Nah.
Okay, last question. And like I've said before, this is one that philosophers and scientists have been debating for centuries. So it's a tough one.
And you've got me to answer it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I figured if anybody could finally answer the question, it would be you. Okay. Creamy or crunchy peanut butter?
Creamy.
Oh, there we go. Still perfect.
Here's why. Here's my theory on creamy peanut butter, okay? I love peanut butter toast. Peanut butter toast is like one of my go-to snacks. The creamy peanut butter, if you get 2 pieces of toast, the creamy peanut butter, when you put it on top, it kind of melts, because the toast is hot and it kind of melts the creamy peanut butter a little bit and just perfect. Get a big old glass of cold chocolate milk with it, you're golden. So creamy peanut butter.
The reasoning is pretty good there for choosing creamy. Everybody else so far, we are 4 for 4 or 3 for 3, I think, on creamy peanut butter over crunchy. And I'm the only one that said crunchy. Everybody else has just said it's because of consistency. They like the smooth consistency, but and I'm going to keep asking that question until somebody finally says crunchy. So we'll see how long that takes.
I guarantee you Max is going to have some hot sports opinions about the peanut butter question. Max's food. When you have him on the show, his food opinions, his food takes are legendary.
So we might get
his most famous one is, I don't want your damn farm-to-table green bean casserole. I want the casserole in the can, the can of onions,
Yeah, you got to have those crunchy canned onions.
Legendary food take. Yeah, he's got legendary food takes.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me is I love green beans. I eat a lot of green beans, mostly canned green beans, but I do not like green bean casserole.
Neither do I. Smart. I'm the same way.
He and I are probably going to have a big fight about that. I don't like those crunchy onions. All right, man. It was a lot of fun. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good one, man. All right, Vince. Good show.
All right, man. But yeah, honestly, another great show. It's great having Matt with us, talking some high school football. It feels like we've been gone forever from it. Hopefully it'll return in the fall here. So, great intake from him. It looks like should be a lot of fun out here in West Texas. We'll see how all our teams will do out here. And then, of course, it's just going to be exciting. We love high school football, man. What we start here on our Concho Sports Network. So perfect area for us. So, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it was awesome. We actually got a sneak preview that, you can't even get unless you get the magazine here in a couple of months. So that was awesome, getting his thoughts on high school football this coming season. All right, before we signed off today, I just wanted to thank our sponsor, Wingstop on Knickerbocker Road in Southwest Plaza again. You can order wings for pickup or delivery 325-227-6777 or on the Wingstop app or wingstop.com. Also follow us on social media if you haven't already at Concho Sports. We'd really appreciate that. All right, and I just want to thank you for watching and have a great night.